That night, when I brought the wallet my husband, Xavier Boone, had forgotten at home to Louis Armstrong Airport, I thought I was just doing my duty as an attentive wife. All I wanted was to get his wallet to him in time for his business flight. But the moment the rideshare car I had ordered pulled up at the domestic terminal right at midnight, the driver, whom I would later learn was Tariq Holden, suddenly locked all the doors. His voice was so tense it was almost choking. Do not get out of the car here. Please, trust me." I froze. "Why, sir?" I asked, my heart pounding as if it wanted to break out of my chest. Tariq had gone pale, cold sweat running down his temples. He gripped the steering wheel so tightly that he could barely force out a few broken words. "You will understand in 5 minutes." All I could do was swallow the rising confusion and try to take a deep breath. Then I did as he said, even though my mind kept spinning through one horrible scenario after another. I had no idea that exactly 5 minutes later, 3 police cruisers would come roaring in to surround us from every direction. And I could never have imagined. That moment would be the dividing line that split my life in two, before and after that fateful night. Before we dive deeper into this story, I want to ask you one quick favor. Hit the like button on this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me which city you are watching from. Your support helps us bring you even more stories full of depth and emotion. And now, come with me as we open the door and step into those chaotic minutes that shattered every belief I ever held. The clock on the living room wall of our Lakeview villa read exactly 12:15 a.m. A cold, almost hostile silence lay over the vast space. I, Layla Hassan, had just finished tidying up my husband's desk, the desk of Xavier Boone. It looked like a battlefield after he had hurriedly prepared for what was supposed to be a last-minute business trip. Xavier had left home just an hour earlier. He said there was an emergency at the northern branch and he had to catch the earliest flight at dawn. I, the devoted wife who rarely questioned anything, had simply folded his clothes, prepared his things, and asked nothing more. Because I trusted him blindly. In the 3 years of our marriage, Xavier had always been the perfect husband in my eyes. Hardworking, kind, gentle in every gesture. A man I had believed could never hurt me. But tonight, as I bent down to turn off the office lights, something black flashed under a pile of files and made me freeze. My heart dropped to the bottom of my chest when I realized what it was. Xavier's leather wallet. I quickly picked it up and opened it. Identification documents, the main credit cards, debit card, a thick wad of cash. Everything was still inside. A wave of anxiety rose and lodged in my throat. How could Xavier go to the airport without his wallet? Without ID, he would not be able to board the plane. Without cards, without cash, he would not be able to manage anything on the trip. Images of Xavier flustered, stuck, or furious because he missed his flight began drilling into my mind one after another. There is this one thing. If I had been a little calmer then, if I had sat down and thought it through instead of acting on instinct, maybe that entire nightmare would have unfolded very differently. But my emotions at that moment revolved around only one thing. I had to help my husband. And that seemingly harmless thought was the first step leading me toward the horrifying truth waiting ahead. I sank into a chair, still clutching the wallet, and memories suddenly flooded in. I remembered our wedding 3 years ago at a boutique hotel in the French Quarter, one of the properties of the Hassan Hospitality Group my father left behind. A small, cozy ceremony full of people we loved. Xavier stood at the altar in a perfectly tailored navy suit. His eyes shone with tenderness as he watched me walk down the aisle in a soft white hijab embroidered with golden lotus flowers. His hand trembled slightly when he took mine and whispered, "Layla, you are the greatest blessing of my life." I believed that, believed it with all my heart. Then there were the mornings we shared beignets at Café du Monde, the afternoons strolling along the Mississippi River, the nights when he held me in his arms and promised he would never let me face the world alone. But lately, things had changed. Xavier started coming home late. He said it was work pressure, demanding partners, troubled projects. I believed him. I signed whatever papers he handed me without reading carefully. I transferred money from our joint account whenever he said there was an urgent payment. Looking back now, I feel utterly foolish. My father, Frederick Hassan, had once warned me before he passed away. "Layla, I spent 40 years building this empire. It is not so someone can just take it away from you. Be smart, be strong." But I had failed him. I had gone soft because of love. I had trusted blindly. Holding the wallet in my hands, I knew something was wrong, but I could not put my finger on what it was. I ran up to the bedroom, grabbed my phone, and called Xavier several times. The phone rang and rang, but no one picked up. I told myself maybe he was on the road, maybe his phone was on silent, or maybe he was in the middle of a work call. That only made me more uneasy. I looked up at the clock, 12:20 a.m. Xavier's flight was scheduled to depart at 2 a.m. If I left right away, it would still be in time. Our house was about 45 minutes from the airport when traffic was clear. I also did not drive at night because I had trouble with headlight glare. The private driver had gone home earlier that afternoon. Without thinking too much, I opened the rideshare app. My hand trembled as I pressed the button to request a car. I had to get this wallet to him. I did not want Xavier to get into trouble over something I could fix. Just a few minutes later, the app showed that a driver had accepted the trip. Tariq Holden, black sedan, currently close to our gated community. He would arrive in 5 minutes. I quickly wrapped a black hijab around my head, buttoned up a thick coat against the night chill, and clutched the wallet as if I were holding my own heartbeat. 5 minutes later, the black sedan stopped in front of the gate. I stepped out, locked the door, and headed down the drive. The back door popped open, and I slid into the seat. A blast of icy air conditioning hit my face, in stark contrast to the stillness of the late night. The man in the driver's seat was a middle-aged black man, hair at his temples already streaked with gray. He glanced at me in the rearview mirror for just a heartbeat. Sharp eyes, expressionless face. I greeted him, apologized for calling a car so late, and explained that I needed to go to the domestic terminal at Louis Armstrong Airport. Mr. Tariq gave a brief nod, said nothing. He turned back to the front, started the engine, and the car slowly pulled away from the wealthy neighborhood behind us. A strange silence seeped into every small crevice inside the car. There was no radio, no gentle New Orleans jazz, no attempt at conversation at all, none of the small talk many drivers use to make passengers feel less awkward. Only the steady hum of the engine and the sound of the tires rubbing against the asphalt. The sedan glided along an almost empty highway, under dim orange streetlights, casting a faint glow on the interior. I sat in the back, eyes glued to my phone screen, hoping Xavier would call back. But the screen stayed dark. I sent him a short message telling him I was on my way to the airport with his wallet, but it remained stuck on sent, with no sign it had been read. Maybe his phone battery had died. Maybe the signal on the way to the airport was weak. I tried to think along those lines to calm myself. I leaned back against the seat, trying to steady my breathing. But the longer we drove, the more I realized something about Tariq Holden's behavior was starting to unsettle me. I noticed that Tariq was looking in the rearview mirror, too often. Not just to check the road, he kept watching me, then glancing at the area behind the car. Every few minutes, his sharp gaze met mine briefly in the mirror. That intense attention sent a chill down my spine. I tightened my coat around me, pulled my handbag closer, where I was holding Xavier's wallet, while a faint, creeping sense of fear began to ferment inside me like yeast. Immediately, every news article about crimes involving ride-share cars I had ever read on social media rushed back. I was a woman alone, in the middle of the night, on a deserted highway, locked inside a car with a man I did not know. I swallowed my fear and murmured a familiar prayer under my breath. Bismillah. Ya Allah, please protect me. I reminded myself that Tariq was probably just the serious, quiet type, exhausted after a long day. Not everyone who looked tense was a bad person. I turned to look out the window to distract myself. The tall buildings of downtown New Orleans slowly receded behind us, giving way to shadowy stretches of land, the outskirts leading to the airport. The car's speed remained steady, neither fast nor slow. Tariq drove very carefully, almost overly so. He kept changing lanes to avoid the few cars on the road, as if he were trying to steer clear of something. An hour later, the bright white lights of the airport appeared in the distance. I exhaled in relief. The clock read exactly 1 a.m., still a full hour before Xavier's flight. I pictured him standing in the check-in area, anxious because he had lost his wallet. I imagined the look of relief on his face when he saw me walking up. The thought made me smile, proud of being such a thoughtful wife. But if there is one thing I learned that night, it is this. The very moment you let out a sigh of relief is exactly when fate tightens its grip. I did not know that the brief flicker of safety that had just appeared would disappear faster than I could imagine. The car entered the airport area. I waited for Tariq to pull up at the main terminal entrance, the place that was always brightly lit and crowded. But he did not. He kept driving slowly and went all the way to the very end of the drop-off zone. That area was almost swallowed in darkness. Several streetlights were out. No people, no cars, no baggage handlers. A cold, empty silence covered everything. I was just about to speak up and ask him to stop at the main entrance when the look in Tariq's eyes in the mirror strangled the words in my throat. His face was taut as a drawn wire. Sweat beaded at his temples. His lips were pressed together as if he were holding his breath. The sedan stopped beside a large concrete pillar, separating the public area from the VIP parking lot. Outside, there was absolutely no one, only the darkness and the knife-sharp wind of the early morning. The hairs on my arms stood on end. Every instinct in me screamed that this was not normal. I put my hand on the door handle, ready to open it and run straight toward the bright lights. I pulled hard. The door would not budge. I tried again. Harder. Nothing. I turned to the other door, also locked. All the doors had been locked from the central control panel by the driver's seat. In that moment, the fear inside me was no longer just fermenting. It turned into an icy current shooting straight down my spine. A violent wave of panic crashed through my chest like a surge of ice. I began to hyperventilate, my hands shaking uncontrollably. I pounded on the window, trying to attract the attention of anyone who might be passing by. But the area was deserted, not a single soul in sight. Between choked sobs, I shouted at Tariq, demanding to know why he had locked the doors, begging him to open them immediately. But he did not move at all. Tariq was gripping the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. He did not turn to look at me even once. His eyes were glued to the pitch-black curb right beside the car, as if he were waiting for something horrible to emerge from the darkness. I broke down, bursting into tears, my voice trembling with despair. I even started begging, offering him everything I had: money, jewelry, my handbag, Xavier's wallet, anything, as long as he would let me out of that car. And then, for the first time since we left the neighborhood, Tariq spoke. His voice dropped low, so serious that it thickened the air, completely different from when we first departed. "You must not get out of this car here, Layla. I forbid it. Please, trust me." Those words should have been reassuring, but instead, they dragged my fear even deeper, as if I were being pulled to the bottom of the ocean, unable to move. How was I supposed to trust a man who was trapping me in his car, in the middle of the night, in front of an almost deserted airport? I broke into sobs, unable to stop, and demanded to know why he was doing this. Tariq turned his head slightly. On his face was genuine terror, yet in his eyes there was a strange, steely resolve. He spoke slowly and clearly. "In 5 minutes, you will understand. By then, your life will depend on one thing. Do not get out of this car." My body started to shake uncontrollably. I curled up on the back seat, clutching my handbag to my chest. I did not know whether I should keep screaming or stay silent so as not to provoke something even worse. Every second that passed stretched out like an eternity. I fixed my eyes on the digital clock on the dashboard. Every time the number ticked up by 1, my heart felt as if it were being squeezed. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Inside the car, the silence was taut as a violin string. Outside, the darkness lay over everything like a predator lying in wait. Tariq still did not take his eyes off the rearview mirror, as if he were watching an invisible enemy I could not see. 4 minutes. My breathing turned shallow, my heartbeat erratic. Every muscle in my body tightened, bracing for something that even I did not know how to name. If you have ever lived through a moment when everything seemed to stand still, then you will understand how I felt. As the 5th minute approached, it was as if the entire world was holding its breath, waiting to explode. And it did explode. 5 minutes. The very moment the clock flipped to the 5th minute, the world blew apart. From the front and the back, 3 police cars came out of nowhere, sirens screaming, blue and red lights slicing through the forgotten darkness of the terminal. They surrounded the sedan, sealing off every possible way out. I let out a strangled scream, for a brief instant thinking they had come to arrest Tariq. A spark of hope flared in me. I thought I had been saved from a kidnapping. Officers in bulletproof vests flung their doors open, rifles in hand. They moved fast, precise, like a SWAT team. I bent double, terrified that a shootout might break out at any second. Through a loudspeaker, I heard urgent commands ordering someone to surrender immediately. I squeezed my eyes shut, covered my ears, and prayed for it all to be over quickly. But then, what happened next left me numb. The police were not targeting Tariq's car. They surged past us, around the big concrete pillar beside us, and swarmed a shadowy figure hiding in the darkness, exactly where my rear door would have opened if I had stepped out. I opened my eyes and lifted my head a little. They were taking down a man in a thick black coat, baseball cap pulled low over his face. He thrashed desperately, but he was vastly outnumbered. They forced him down onto the concrete, wrenching his arms behind his back to handcuff him. From the pocket of his coat, a folding knife fell out, and a handkerchief soaked in some liquid. One officer picked them up with gloved hands and quickly put them into an evidence bag. Even from inside the car, I could smell the sharp, acrid odor that cut straight down my spine. Chloroform. Just then, another officer opened the driver's door and spoke to Tariq in a respectful tone, as if they had known each other for a long time. He reported that the target had been subdued and the situation was now safe. Tariq gave a small nod. His shoulders dropped, as though he had just laid down a boulder. He switched off the central lock. The click of the lock sounded to me like the very sound of deliverance. Still shaking, I tried to ask Tariq what was happening and why they had arrested that man. I could not understand why the police did not lay a hand on Tariq. They even spoke to him with such polite respect. For the first time during the entire ride, Tariq turned to face me calmly. His expression had completely changed. Gone was the distant, cold demeanor of a rideshare driver. In its place was warmth, respect, and something that felt like genuine concern. He introduced himself again, but this time not as a driver. He was Tariq Holden, my father's former head of personal security, Mr. Frederick Hassan. I was stunned into silence. That name. I vaguely remembered it from childhood. The quiet man who always stood at a distance during family events, the one my father used to call as trustworthy as myself. Tariq said that before he died, my father had secretly asked him to continue protecting me from afar. He was afraid that one day someone would try to get close to me purely for money, for the fortune he had left behind. And tonight, intelligence had shown that a kidnapping plot targeting me had just been activated. The man the police had just taken down was the one hired to kidnap me at the airport curb. The moment I stepped onto the sidewalk, he would use the chloroform-soaked cloth to knock me unconscious, then force me into another vehicle. I brought my hand to my mouth, trying to stifle the scream rising in my throat. The thought that I had been only seconds away from death froze my entire body. My voice came out shaking. Who could hate me enough to do that? Tariq did not answer right away. He lifted his hand and pointed to the second floor of the International Arrivals building, where the glass facade was brightly lit. I followed his gaze, and my heart dropped into an abyss. Standing there was Xavier, my husband, but he did not look panicked because his wife was missing. On the contrary, his face was flushed red with rage and frustration. He threw his phone to the floor like a man who had just watched a plan fall apart, and he was not alone. Right beside him was Corinne Tate, my best friend, the one who had held my hand through every crisis, the one I trusted like family. Corinne was wearing a striking red dress, her arm wrapped around Xavier's in a way that was intimate to the point of brazen. At their feet were 2 large suitcases, not business trip luggage, but bags packed for a long journey. Xavier's arm was draped around Corinne's waist with an ease that spoke volumes, the kind of ease that comes from a relationship that had been going on far longer than I had ever known. Both of them were looking down toward the line of police cars with expressions of fury and despair, as if someone had just destroyed a meticulously crafted plan they had been nurturing for a long time. In that moment, my world cracked into pieces. Tears welled up again, but this time, not from fear. They came from a razor-sharp pain tearing deep into my chest, a double betrayal, unfolding right before my eyes. There are moments when pain does not strike like a bolt of lightning. It seeps into every cell, slow, cruel, fully conscious. That was the moment I knew. My life would never be the same again. The man I loved, the friend I trusted more than myself, had conspired together to remove me. The business trip was nothing but a pretext. The forgotten wallet was the perfect bait to lure me into the trap, alone, in the middle of the night, exactly where the kidnapper was waiting. I thought of Corinne, the girl I had met at 17. We grew up together in the Garden District, wandered Canal Street, whispered about boys, and shared our dreams for the future. At my father's funeral, Corinne had whispered, "You are so lucky, Layla. But don't worry, I will always be here with you." Now, looking at her pressed against Xavier, I understood that she had never been here for me. She had only envied me and silently waited for the day she could take what I had. Tariq let me cry. He remained completely silent, just listening until the sobs softened into broken breaths. Then he started the car and drove me away from the airport, the place where a part of me had died forever. As we merged onto the highway, Tariq told me to open Xavier's wallet again. I did as he said, my hands still trembling. The identification, the cards, everything looked the same as usual. But when I reached the wad of cash, something snagged between the bills. A carefully folded piece of paper, not a receipt, a one-way plane ticket abroad, in the names of Xavier Hassan and Corinne Tate. Behind it was another sheet of paper, even colder, a newly signed life insurance policy in my name, sole beneficiary, Xavier, payout, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Everything snapped into focus. He had not forgotten his wallet. He was not on a business trip. He was not worried, waiting for me. He had orchestrated everything. If the kidnapping had succeeded, I would have disappeared. He would collect the insurance money, and Xavier and Corinne would live in comfort in another country. I clenched the documents in my hand, my heart turning to ice. But alongside that horror, something else was rising. No more blind love, no more naive hope, but a cold anger, sharp as a blade, cutting straight through my soul. I looked at myself in the compact mirror. The woman staring back at me was a stranger. No longer the gentle Layla from that morning. No longer the Layla who trusted unconditionally, but a new Layla, clear-eyed, sharp, and no longer afraid. Tariq looked at me in the rearview mirror. In his eyes, I saw understanding. He knew Layla had just shifted, from victim to active player, ready to strike back. Tariq told me that Xavier had absolutely no idea I had uncovered the truth. In my husband's mind, the only thing that had happened tonight was a failed kidnapping at the airport, an unforeseen incident foiled by the police, and that ignorance was my greatest advantage. Xavier still believed I was naive, that I trusted him without question. He did not know that his perfect mask had already fallen long ago. Tariq advised me, "Go home. Pretend you never left." We needed time to prepare a counterattack, to protect my assets, and gather evidence before Xavier had a chance to do anything more. The old version of me, the trusting, gentle, blindly devoted wife, had been buried in that airport parking lot that night. A new Layla had risen, clear, cold, and fully aware of who her enemy was. Tariq's black sedan rolled slowly through the empty streets of New Orleans at dawn, as if carrying me across an invisible bridge, out of the world of blind faith and into the territory of awakening. Inside the car, the silence returned, but it was no longer an oppressive silence. It was the heavy stillness of someone quietly preparing for a war to reclaim everything that is hers. I remembered the last evening with my father. He lay in his hospital bed, frail, but his eyes were still as sharp as when he led the big meetings of Hassan Hospitality Group. He held my hand, his voice hoarse but resolute. "Layla, I built this empire over 40 years. Not so someone can steal it from you. Be smart. Be strong. Never let anyone exploit your kindness." I had cried. I had promised. But I had not kept that promise. I had allowed Xavier into my life, and like a termite, he had gnawed at my father's legacy bit by bit. In that stunned silence, I whispered into the air, as if my father were sitting beside me. "Dad, I'm sorry, but I promise, from tonight on, I will stand up." There are moments when pain becomes fire, and when it burns long enough, it turns into steel. That was when I knew I would not just survive, I would strike back. As the car drove through the empty streets of New Orleans, Tariq began telling me what he had quietly uncovered over the past 6 months. Xavier, the well-dressed, ambitious man who constantly talked about big projects and demanding partners, was actually drowning in illegal online gambling debt. The amount had surpassed $200,000. I sat frozen. Tariq explained that Xavier had pawned off smaller assets in his own name, concealed transactions, and his behavior had grown increasingly suspicious. He was talking to people he should not be talking to. He was trying harder and harder to get access to my money. And I, foolishly believing it was work pressure, believing his complaints about no-show clients and delayed projects, had kept signing urgent documents and transferring money from our joint account. Now, the truth hit me like a slap. I had been feeding a wolf in my own home. Tariq told me to check the wallet one more time, more thoroughly. I did. This time, I found a hidden compartment, too narrow to notice easily. Inside was a tightly folded sheet of paper. When I opened it, it felt as if my blood stopped flowing. It was a power of attorney transferring ownership of my house and major properties into Xavier's name. The signature at the bottom looked like mine, but I knew I had never signed it. Tariq explained, Xavier might have forged my signature or slipped the document among others when I was tired and not paying attention. The plan was sophisticated enough to make my skin crawl. If I had been kidnapped and vanished, Xavier could have executed that document immediately, before anyone suspected a thing. I crushed the paper in my hand, trembling with rage. I remembered his gentle smile when he said goodbye tonight. The smile of a man confident that his wife would be dead in a few hours. The fury inside me surged into a cold current running through my veins. There was not a shred of love left. I looked at the window and saw my reflection, my face streaked with tears, but my eyes were different now, deeper, colder, more resolute. The soft version of Layla had ended at the airport. The new version, strong, clear-headed, and ready to fight, had just been born. For my father, for myself, for the justice I deserved. Tariq saw that change in my eyes. He gave a slight nod, a gesture of recognition. Then he began outlining the counterattack. The first step, get home before Xavier. Construct a believable story that I never left the house. Let him continue thinking I am the naive wife he can fool. Because to win, I needed him to believe the game was still in his hands, while in reality, I had already made the first move. The trip back felt much shorter than the ride to the airport. New Orleans at 2 a.m. was eerily empty, as if the city itself were holding its breath to give me time to untangle the chaos in my head. I wiped away the tear tracks, adjusted my hijab in the small mirror, and practiced a smile. At first it was stiff, crooked, like a streak of dried paint dragged out of place. But after a few attempts, I managed to recreate the sweet expression Xavier was used to seeing. Tonight, I had to become the best actress in my own life, not to win an award, but to stay alive and protect my future. As the car approached the gated community, Tariq turned off the headlights to avoid attracting attention from security or neighbors. He dropped me off a few meters from the front door, so the sound of the engine would not arouse any suspicion. Before I got out, Tariq handed me a small device the size of a thumb, a high-tech spy microphone. He instructed me to hide it somewhere Xavier used every day, but where it would not be easily detected. I closed my fingers around it. A silent weapon, more powerful than any knife. I slipped back toward my own front door, like an intruder returning to her own territory. I eased the key into the lock and turned it carefully, making sure the door would not creak. Inside, it was dark and quiet. The artificial lavender scent that used to relax me now felt so heavy it was suffocating. Every corner of the room looked like a stage set for a life I had just discovered was entirely fake. The sofa where we used to watch movies, the dining table where we had shared intimate breakfasts, all of it felt cold. I locked the door from the inside, as if lowering the curtain on a stage for a play I was now forced to act in perfectly. I went into the bathroom, splashed water on my face again and again to erase any trace of fear and panic. Looking into the mirror, I still saw myself, but my eyes were different, no longer naive, but clear and steely. I whispered to my reflection, I can do this. I am not a victim. I am my father's daughter. When I felt steadier, I started resetting the scene. I took Xavier's wallet into the living room and thought about the most believable place to accidentally find it. It had to be plausible, but not too obvious. In the end, I decided to tuck half the wallet into the gap between the sofa cushion and the armrest, exactly how it would look if it had slipped out of his pocket when he sat down to tie his shoes. Perfect. I sat on the sofa, turned on the television at low volume, placed a magazine in my hands, and pretended I had dozed off in anxious waiting. Around 3 a.m, I heard an engine stop in front of the house. My heart clenched. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and pretended to sleep. The door opened, the keys turning in a frantic motion. Xavier walked in, drenched in sweat, tie hanging loose, eyes blazing with agitation. But that was not the face of a man who had just been stuck in traffic. It was the face of someone who had watched a criminal plan fail right in front of him. "Layla!" he called out loudly. I startled, dropped the magazine, and bolted upright with a groggy expression. I asked why he was here. Wasn't he supposed to be on a plane by now? My performance was flawless. Xavier froze, stunned to see me so calm. But after only a second, he regained his composure and launched into his usual lies. He said that on the way to the airport, he realized his wallet was missing. He panicked, turned back, then got stuck in traffic because of an accident, which was why he was late coming home. I nodded, looking worried. while inside, my blood was boiling. I gently took his hand and told him I had been worried too, because I could not reach him. Then I pointed at the sofa. I told him that when I woke up, I had felt something jammed under the cushion and discovered his wallet there. Xavier followed my gesture. When he saw the edge of the wallet sticking out, his expression changed immediately. Relief? Confusion. Then he rushed over to grab the wallet and check it. Everything was still there, and he had no idea I had already photographed all the suspicious documents inside. He pulled me into a tight hug, repeating his thanks as if I had just saved his life. But in that embrace, I smelled a woman's perfume, soft, expensive, and instantly recognizable. Corinne. My stomach twisted, but I kept my gentle smile in place. I urged him to take a hot shower and rest after his long night. Xavier agreed and headed upstairs. As soon as he disappeared from view, I squeezed the tiny microphone in my hand. This was the golden moment. In every battle, the silent moment before a counterattack is always the most decisive. I knew clearly one tiny mistake, and the entire plan would collapse. Pretending to prepare clean towels, I followed him upstairs. Hearing the water running in the bathroom, I knew I only had a few dozen seconds. Xavier's suit lay on the bed, but I did not choose it. Clothes change every day. We needed something he kept with him at all times. My eyes landed on his favorite leather briefcase, the birthday gift I had given him. He never went anywhere without it. I opened the smallest pocket inside, the one he used for keys or loose change, and slid the microphone into the deepest corner, pressed it lightly so it would stay in place, closed the zipper. Just then, the bathroom door opened. Xavier stepped out, a towel around his waist. I turned back to him with a soft smile and handed him a clean set of clothes. He kissed my forehead, unaware that from this moment on, every secret he held would soon be in my hands. That night, we lay on the same bed, but our souls were in two opposite worlds. Xavier fell into a deep sleep with ease, as if his failed attempt to have his wife killed was nothing more than a passing shower, not worth worrying about. Perhaps in his dreams, he was already sitting with Corinne, plotting a new strategy. And me? I lay with my eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling in the thick darkness, every cell in my body strung tight with vigilance. In my ear was an earpiece connected to the spy mic control app. I knew Xavier. A man like him would never let a failure sit overnight. He would contact his accomplice, map out the next step, and I needed to hear every single word. Near dawn, I pretended to wake up for a glass of water and quietly slipped down to the kitchen. In the dim light, I opened the app. The microphone icon was blinking. The device was working perfectly inside the briefcase. I heard traffic noise in the background. Xavier was on the move somewhere. Then the sound of dialing. The line connected, and a woman's voice came on. I froze. Corinne. The call was nothing like how I had ever imagined the two of them. No whispered declarations of love, no stolen tenderness, only panic and hostility. Xavier was cursing, his voice heavy, relentless. He was furious that the police had blown up the plan at the airport. He was breathing hard, shouting about more than $200,000 in gambling debt coming due the next day. If he did not pay on time, the loan sharks would come to the house, come to the office, destroy his reputation, and very likely drag him into prison. I leaned against the kitchen counter to keep my balance. Every word he spoke was a knife twisting into my chest. Corinne was different, worried but much colder. She reminded Xavier of the backup plan, the old warehouse I had inherited from my father, where they believed I was keeping gold and land deeds that had not yet been transferred. The problem was, only I knew the safe combination. Corinne ordered Xavier to get that code by any means necessary: seduction, pressure, or exploiting my weaknesses. Xavier did not object. He only said that afternoon he would come home with gifts to soften me up. In that instant, the pain inside me turned into a cold flame. There are moments when pain does not break you. It turns into fuel. burning away every hesitation, every trace of weakness. And when I heard their true plan, my heart did not shatter. It turned to steel. That was the moment I knew I had to strike back. I ended the surveillance and immediately called Tariq. My voice shook, but not from fear anymore, from determination. Half an hour later, the familiar black sedan stopped in front of my house. I got into the car, carrying a backpack filled with crucial documents I had taken from my secret safe before leaving. I was still a little pale, but my eyes burned with a light made of pain, anger, and awakening woven together. I told Tariq every detail of the call, not leaving out a single word. And as the last sentence left my lips, I knew. This war had entered a new phase. Tariq listened to every word I said, not interrupting even once. When I finished, he took a deep breath and said the first and most important step was this. We had to protect my money and assets before Xavier could make any desperate move. We left the house immediately and headed straight to the bank and my father's trusted attorney. At the bank, I transferred most of the money from our joint account into an entirely new account in my name only. I asked the bank to block all the supplementary cards Xavier was using, explaining that the wallet had been lost and I needed to cancel the cards for security reasons. The bank employee looked at me in surprise, but did not ask questions. They followed every instruction I gave. As I signed the forms, I realized my hand was no longer shaking. This was the hand of a woman taking back control of her own life. Each signature a brick laid in the rebuilding of her future. After that, we went to the office of an older lawyer who had worked for my father for many years. There, I signed an asset protection document that made it nearly impossible for anyone to dispose of my property without my presence. The lawyer looked at me for a long moment, not with pity, but with genuine respect. He said softly, "Ms. Hassan, your father would be proud of you." I nodded, swallowing back tears. Those words, simple yet heavy as stone, hit me right in the heart. By late morning, as we stepped out of the law office, I felt like I could finally breathe deeply again. At least I had just closed off one of Xavier's biggest possible lifelines. Tariq stayed by my side, steady as a second father. As we stepped into the gentle midday light, he laid a hand on my shoulder and said, "Layla, you are doing the right thing. Frederick would be proud." For the first time in many hours, I smiled, a real smile. In war, there are moments when you reclaim a bit of ground, but the enemy is still out there lurking in the shadows. And you know, the real battle will begin when he realizes you are no longer an easy prey. That afternoon was exactly such a moment. Xavier came home early, carrying a huge bouquet of red roses and a small bag from the pharmacy. I opened the door to him with a gentle smile, just sincere enough that he would not suspect I was examining every detail. He kissed my cheek and handed me the flowers as if we were living in some romantic love story. Then he held out the package, explaining in the voice of a caring husband, "I've noticed you seem a bit tired and pale lately, so I bought some imported vitamins, the most expensive kind. I just want you to be healthy." I thanked him, but inside, an alarm siren went off. When Xavier went to the bathroom to wash his face, I opened the package. The seal had been tampered with. I poured one capsule into my hand. It was coated in fine white powder, nothing like normal vitamins. My stomach clenched. At dinner, Xavier tried to push me to take one pill in front of him. His eyes were fixed on me, as if he were waiting for an immediate effect. I got up to get some water and walked into the kitchen. There, I threw the capsule down the drain and took a mint candy of similar size from my pocket. When I came back to the table, I placed the vitamin on my tongue and swallowed it in front of Xavier. He smiled in satisfaction, unaware that his poisoning attempt had just failed right before his eyes. In the following days, I quietly flushed the entire contents of the bottle down the toilet, keeping only the empty container to maintain the illusion that I was taking them regularly. Xavier grew more and more impatient. Every morning he would ask, "Did you take your vitamins?" I would smile, sweet as sugar. "Yes, I did. I feel better already." But inside, I saw it clearly. I was living with a venomous snake, just waiting for the next chance to strike. 3 days after that poisoning attempt, Xavier truly began to lose his composure. He had been expecting to see me staggering, pale, dizzy, weak, the perfect symptoms to make me easier to manipulate. But what he saw was the exact opposite. I got up early, went out to the garden to stretch and do a few light exercises. I cooked healthy meals, set the table neatly, and saw him off to work with a gentle smile and all the right soft, dutiful wife phrases. That was what unsettled him. While the gambling creditors continued to bombard Xavier's phone with increasingly explicit threats, I, fully aware of the pressure tightening around his neck, understood it was time to move into a psychological counterattack. I needed to push him into making mistakes that would weigh heavily against him later in court. That morning, I called him at the office, deliberately speaking in a light, cheerful tone. I told him I had been thinking a lot and wanted to host a special dinner at home, to celebrate how he had calmed down after the scare with the wallet, and to thank him for working so hard for our family. As the cherry on top, I confessed that I missed my best friend, Corinne Tate, whom I had not seen much of recently. I asked Xavier if he thought it would be a good idea to invite Corinne over for dinner as well. Silence on the other end of the line for a few seconds. I could practically see the gears turning in his head. Risk versus opportunity, which weighed more? Bringing his wife and his mistress to the same dinner table was a stupid gamble, but it was also a chance to manipulate both at once. In the end, Xavier agreed. His voice sounded enthusiastic, so much so that it was obviously fake. He had no idea he had just stepped straight into the trap I had set. That evening, I prepared the dining table as if I were arranging a ritual. I lit scented candles, took out the finest dishes, and arranged the chosen cuts of meat and side dishes in a balanced, meticulous spread in the middle of the table. I wore a deep plum-colored dress, modest but elegant, and applied light makeup, just enough to accentuate features that were now sharper, more awake than before. At exactly 8 p.m., the doorbell rang. Xavier went to open it himself. Corinne appeared in a form-fitting dress that flaunted every curve, the perfect contrast to my modest attire. She smiled, holding a beautifully wrapped gift, and walked into the house with that familiar counterfeit warmth, greeting me with 2 kisses on the cheek, hugging me as if we were still inseparable sisters. I hugged her back, but inside I felt only one thing. It was like embracing a snake. Dinner began with small talk and flat jokes. Xavier and Corinne exchanged loaded glances, coded looks they thought I was too oblivious to notice. I focused on pouring wine, passing dishes, serving food, keeping up the friendly, harmonious atmosphere of a supposedly happy family. Then, amidst the clinking of cutlery on porcelain, I decided to move my piece. I set my knife and fork down, gently dabbed my lips with the napkin, and lowered my voice. Last night, I had a really strange dream. Xavier looked up, mid-chew, and asked what I had dreamt about. I smiled, half mysterious, half casual. Slowly, I described a wealthy woman with a charming husband and an inseparable best friend. But behind her back, the husband and the friend secretly conspired to kill her for a massive inheritance. I added details: a fake business trip, a hitman waiting at the airport curb with a chloroform-soaked cloth, a bottle of vitamins that had been switched. The details were so sharp, even the blood in your veins would run cold. Corinne went pale instantly. Her fork slipped from her hand and clattered onto the plate with a piercing clang. Xavier choked on his meat, coughing violently, gulping down water. The air in the dining room thickened like glue. They glanced at each other, the look of accomplices, trying to gauge exactly how much I knew. I deliberately paused for a few beats, then let out a soft laugh. Thankfully, it was just a dream. Because if a husband who loves his wife as much as you do, Xavier, and a good friend like Corinne ever did that to me, that really would be a nightmare. The words were gentle, but the blade was hidden right behind the smile. Before they could regain their composure, I landed the next blow. I said that dream had made me think a lot about death. That, as a kind of spiritual awakening, I had gone to see my lawyer that very morning. I explained calmly, I had completely rewritten my will. If I were to die suddenly, or under any suspicious circumstances before the age of 60, 100% of my assets, including the house, the properties, the bank accounts, the stocks, and all documents and assets in the family safe, would be transferred directly and automatically into a charitable fund for orphanages and organizations supporting cancer patients. Not to my husband, not to any relative. No one in the family would receive a single dollar. I gently explained that Xavier was a capable man who could make his own money, that he did not need to rely on his wife's inheritance. The room fell dead silent. Xavier froze, staring into emptiness as if someone had just yanked the floor out from under him. Corinne's mouth hung open, but no sound came out. Every plan they had made to get rid of me and swallow my wealth collapsed in a single announcement. Killing me from that moment on would no longer bring them any financial gain. If I died, the only thing they would inherit was debt and disgrace. I tilted my head and smiled sweetly. Do you think this decision is a bit too much? Or maybe just a little too fair to fate? Xavier immediately spoke up, stammering that it was an overreaction, that I should think of the family's future. I cut him off politely but firmly, stressing that I was thinking of my own spiritual future. In front of me sat two greedy people, wrapped in a heavy, desperate silence, struggling not to show too clearly that their entire scheme had just imploded. What they had no idea about was this. In a hidden corner of the dining room, a tiny light on a concealed camera that Tariq had installed was blinking, recording every panicked expression, every glance, every word. That dinner was the first piece in the evidence file that would crush Xavier and Corinne in court. You see, very often the worst nightmare in a woman's life is not the hitman waiting outside the door, but the two familiar faces sitting at her table. And if you are still here, listening, stay with me, because from this moment on, the story shifts from victim to judge. This is where the final mask falls, and justice, somehow, finds its way back. That night, Xavier could not sleep at all. He and Corinne met in secret at her small, hidden apartment in another part of the city. Their usual hideout, now turned into a lair of panic. Xavier's phone was buzzing nonstop with calls and messages from foreign numbers, full of threats and gruesome images. The bookmakers had run out of patience. Xavier paced back and forth like a trapped animal. The aura of the polished businessman was gone, leaving only a haggard man with dark circles under his eyes and nerves stretched tight as wire. He understood perfectly. With the new will in place, killing me was pointless. The quick fix route had been blocked. Corinne sat on the sofa, a cigarette trembling between her fingers, constantly blaming him. She snapped that it was all Xavier's fault, letting me change the will, letting me slip out of his control, letting the plan crash and burn. They argued, screamed, hurled vicious insults at each other. But the more they fought, the clearer one thing became: they still needed money. Immediately. If they could not get rid of me, the only option left was to break me. In his desperation, Xavier decided to switch to another kind of violence. He would stage a kidnapping inside my own home. His plan: hire 3 burly thugs to break into the house, tie me up, and torture me physically and psychologically until I was exhausted and forced to sign documents to revoke the new will, and powers of attorney to transfer my assets. At this point, Xavier no longer cared about playing the perfect husband. His life was under threat. The mask had cracked, and now he was ready to throw it away. The next day, Xavier did not come home. He only sent a text saying the company was under an urgent audit and he had to sleep at the office. In reality, he was sitting in a roadside cafe facing 3 thick-set men with criminal faces. Xavier promised them a generous sum if they could get him my signatures, by any means necessary. When the sun set, painting the sky in a sad orange, Xavier, Corinne, and the three thugs piled into a dark-tinted van and sped toward my house. From the outside, the house was still and quiet. The porch light was off, odd since I usually turned it on early. My car was still in the garage, which meant, in theory, I had to be home. Xavier unlocked the gate with a spare key, his heart pounding. He signaled the thugs to get ready. He slid the key into the front door lock and turned it carefully. The door opened without any resistance. They flooded the ground floor in a wave, ready to overpower anyone in sight. The thugs swept through the living room, kitchen, family room. Xavier and Corinne rushed straight up to the master bedroom, where I usually slept. Xavier kicked the door open, shouting my name in a threatening tone. No one. The bed was neatly made, the wardrobe untouched, everything orderly. They searched every room, every corner, every floor. The house was empty. Terrified at the possibility that I had escaped, Xavier stormed back down to the living room, his face scarlet with rage and panic. The thugs confirmed no one was there. In a fit of fury, he kicked the coffee table, sending a vase crashing into pieces. Just then, a small sound cut through the silence. The laptop on the coffee table suddenly lit up. A notification popped on the screen, and seconds later, a video call began to play automatically. Xavier, Corinne, and the thugs slowly moved closer, eyes narrowing in suspicion. On the screen was me. I was sitting in an unfamiliar room, hijab neatly wrapped in black, my expression calm to the point of chilling. Xavier lunged toward the screen, shouting to ask where I was, ordering me to come home immediately. I did not budge. I greeted Xavier, greeted Corinne, and did not forget to send regards to the 3 special guests with them, just enough to make it clear I knew exactly what was happening. Then I pointed to a corner of the screen, where the live stream icon was glowing and the live viewer count was steadily climbing. I explained, the entire house had been fitted with hidden cameras. Everything they were doing at that very moment was being broadcast live to a private server. My lawyer and several contacts in law enforcement were watching it all. With one tap on my phone, all of the footage and their exact location would be sent to the authorities. Xavier's face went chalk white. I said clearly that I had not tapped that button yet. I was giving them one last chance to listen to me. In an even voice, I laid it out. I knew they were there for my money. I knew Xavier was being squeezed over more than $200,000 in gambling debt. I knew they were desperate. I also said plainly, I had no intention of helping them the way they wanted. But I was also not the kind of person cruel enough to stand by and watch them be killed over a debt. I confirmed. The will I had told them about was real. My major assets were protected. No one could touch them. But then I hinted at a secret. There was still a stash of cash and gold my father had left, hidden in a secret location not directly listed in the will. An amount large enough to clear the debt, and then some. Xavier's and Corinne's eyes lit up with greed. They immediately asked where the money was. They promised that once they had it, they would disappear from my life. I told them about the old family textile warehouse in an abandoned industrial area that hardly anyone visited anymore. I said that in the back, under the concrete floor where machine number 7 used to stand, a safe was buried. I gave them the safe code, based on our wedding date, but reversed. The story was detailed, logical, real enough to sweep away the last of Xavier's doubts. He remembered that warehouse. He had been there once early in our marriage, and he knew it was the perfect place to hide something. Xavier ordered the thugs to go with him to the warehouse. He needed their muscle to break the floor and haul out the safe. He slammed the laptop shut, cutting the call short, convinced that the treasure was within reach. The van roared away, heading toward the industrial zone. They had no idea that farther back, a black sedan was following, keeping a safe distance. Tariq was driving. I sat beside him, watching the red GPS dot marking Xavier's van. After about 45 minutes of jolting along deteriorated roads, Xavier's van reached the lane where rows of rusty old warehouses sat in silence. My family's warehouse was at the end of the row. its facade flaking, the iron fence twisted and rusted. Xavier used the van to ram open a section of the fence and squeeze the vehicle into the yard of cracked mud and weeds. They pulled shovels, pickaxes, and crowbars from the back, then smashed open the warehouse door, shoving aside the old metal panel with a resounding groan. The smell of damp, dust, and animal droppings hit them. By Corinne's flashlight, they made their way to the back, where an old loom stood still and corroded, like a dead body. Following my instructions, they focused on the concrete floor beneath the machine. Xavier ordered them to start breaking it up. The sound of hammers and crowbars striking concrete echoed through the dark space. For nearly an hour, sweat poured off them. Concrete cracked, tiles shattered, rubble piled high. Then, one strike of the shovel scraped against something solid. Xavier immediately ordered a stop and shone the flashlight close. Beneath the crumbly soil, the top of a metal safe broke through. They heaved the safe up and set it on the cracked floor. Xavier wiped his hands and stepped up to the combination lock, fingers trembling as he turned the dial to the code I had given him. There was a soft click. The lock released. Corinne pressed in beside him, holding her breath. The thugs edged closer too, trying to see inside. Xavier opened the safe, ready for the blinding gleam of gold. There was no gold, no stacks of cash, only a pile of paperwork, old folders, and a few large photos. Confused, he began rifling through it, still hoping the treasure might be hidden somewhere underneath. But what he found was this: detailed copies of his gambling debts with full transaction information. Transfer receipts from my accounts to his, and from his to Corinne's over the past 2 years. Photos of Xavier and Corinne entering hotels, dining together, embracing at the airport. On top of the stack of documents sat a white envelope, handwritten in very familiar script. Mine. On the front was a single line: a small gift for traitors. Xavier opened the envelope, his hands shaking violently. Inside was a sheet of paper with only a few lines. The treasure you're looking for isn't here. Everything in this safe is evidence of what you've done. Enjoy. The police are on their way. At that exact moment, harsh white light flooded into the warehouse through broken windows and cracks. Sirens wailed outside, surrounding the building. A loudspeaker barked commands. "This building is surrounded. Drop all weapons, hands in the air. Do not move." The paper slipped from Xavier's fingers. His knees buckled. Corinne screamed, punching his chest, shrieking that he was an idiot. The 3 thugs tried to slip out through the back door, but it burst open under the boot of a SWAT officer. Within minutes, all of them were slammed to the cold concrete, their arms wrenched behind their backs and cuffed. Greed had led them here. Reality slapped them hard and fast. The police floodlights turned the warehouse into an operating room, leaving no dark corner where the truth could hide. The main warehouse doors swung open, officers forming 2 lines, creating a path. The echo of footsteps rang out on the concrete. I walked in, wearing a light-colored coat, hijab perfectly in place, posture calm. Behind me was Tariq, walking slowly, his face filled with quiet satisfaction and pride. Xavier and Corinne looked up at me as if they were staring at fate itself. There was no trace left of the obedient wife they had once led around by the nose. Standing in front of them was a woman who had taken back control of her life. Xavier tried to crawl closer, snot and tears everywhere, begging for forgiveness, blaming Corinne, claiming he had been confused, that he still loved me. He dropped to his knees and tried to kiss the tip of my shoe. Corinne, seeing this, shrieked insults at him, then turned to me to plead as well, saying she had been dragged into it, that she did not want to go to prison. I stepped back, not allowing either of them to touch me. I asked Xavier if he remembered that night at Louis Armstrong Airport, when he had stood on the upper floor, looking down, waiting for news that I had disappeared under a hitman's hand. I told him that that night I had given him a chance by not reporting him immediately to see if there was any scrap of humanity left in him. But instead of stopping, he chose to keep poisoning, to keep escalating the violence. Then I held up my phone so they could see. On the screen, a stream of comments slid nonstop beneath the live video. Outrage, condemnation, disgust. I told them everything that had happened here, and the staged kidnapping plan at my house had been recorded and sent to my lawyer, business partners, neighbors, relatives. They were not just losing their freedom. They were losing their reputation, the thing they had once been obsessively proud of. A senior officer walked up and asked permission to take the suspects away. I nodded. Xavier was yanked to his feet, staggering like a broken puppet. Corinne kept screaming, begging, insisting it was all a misunderstanding. As the van carrying them drove off, the warehouse fell back into darkness. I turned to look at the open safe. No gold, just papers, photos, evidence. It was exactly like my marriage, seemingly solid and shiny on the outside, nothing but trash inside. Tariq was waiting for me at the door. I nodded to him. It was time to go home. This time, truly home, a place that would slowly be cleansed of the toxins Xavier had poured into it. 6 months later, my life was different. The trials for Xavier and Corinne moved quickly. Audio recordings, camera footage, the documents in the safe, bank statements. Together, they painted a picture so clear their lawyers could hardly argue. The judge handed down heavy sentences: attempted murder, fraud, financial crime, forgery. Xavier was sent to a maximum security prison. There he discovered that his creditors also had friends on the inside. The tailored suits, the fancy dinners were nothing but distant memories now. Every night he lay on a hard, cold bunk, staring at the ceiling, surrounded by threats, violence, humiliation. Regret? Perhaps. But far too late. Corinne was sent to a women's prison. Rumors spread quickly. She had helped plot the murder of her best friend. In a place where formal law was loose, but unwritten codes were strict, that kind of betrayal was despised more than almost anything. The woman who used to dress up for bars and pose in expensive spots now washed laundry and ran errands in exchange for a bit of protection. She cried every night, but guilt did not bring her life back. As for me, I chose to rebuild myself from the ruins. I renovated the house, new furniture, new wall colors, new layout. I removed everything that bore the stamp of Xavier's taste. The house that had once been a stage for fakery slowly became a place that truly held warmth. I threw myself into work, taking care of the company my father had left. With lawyers and advisors, I tracked down those who had colluded with Xavier in shady deals and removed them. I tightened procedures, prioritized transparency, and realized I was not just the old boss's daughter. I was the one leading the company into a new phase of growth. My name began to appear at business events. I was invited to speak about female leadership, about how a woman can rise from betrayal without losing her dignity. The hijab I wore every day was not just a symbol of faith, it was also a reminder. I had almost died, but I lived, and I lived aligned with my inner strength. Tariq was no longer just my father's former bodyguard. He became my right hand, and more than that, family. Every morning he came to the office with a cup of coffee and a quiet smile. He did not say much, but his presence was enough to make me feel I never had to face the world alone. One afternoon, as we reviewed financial reports, I looked at him and said, "Tariq, you're not just a protector. You are family. You are the second father Allah sent to me." His eyes grew wet. He said nothing, just nodded, and laid a hand on my shoulder. On a beautiful morning, I returned to Louis Armstrong Airport, the place where my life had almost ended. This time, I came with a light heart and a small suitcase. I wore comfortable but neat clothes, sunglasses, and a faint smile. Tariq came along to the VIP area. He was no longer the silent driver from that night, but the man who had saved my life and walked with me through the journey of reclaiming it. We walked past the concrete pillar, the very spot where months before a man with a chloroform cloth had waited to turn me into a victim. This time, the memory did not sting like an open wound. It felt like a milestone, marking the place where I had died once, and then come back to life in a different way. Tariq asked if I was ready for the trip. I nodded. In my hand was a ticket for Umrah, the minor pilgrimage to Mecca, and a connecting flight to Turkey. The trip I had once dreamed of taking with my husband. Now I was taking it alone, with a free heart, no longer bound to anyone. I thanked Tariq for everything, telling him that to me, he was not just a protector. He was a guardian angel my father had sent, from his memory and his last words. He smiled, eyes a little misty. I turned toward the international departures gate, inhaled deeply, and stepped through. The screen showed my flight as on time. That tiny detail suddenly felt symbolic. My life was finally on the path I had chosen myself, not a route drawn by someone else. Before boarding, I stopped at one last place, a small garden in the Garden District, where my father was buried. I knelt before his headstone, placed my hand on the cold stone, and whispered, "Dad, I did it. I was strong. I protected your legacy. I believe that wherever you are, you're proud of me. I love you, always." I laid a bouquet of white lilies, his favorite, on the grave. As I stood up and turned to leave, I felt a deep lightness settle in me. No more guilt, no more regret, only gratitude for being alive, for being free, for having the chance to write the rest of my story with my own hands. Layla stepped onto the plane, rolling her suitcase, her steps steady. Her story was not only about betrayal and revenge, it was a story about awakening, about learning to recognize the warning signs, a husband who controls the finances but is never transparent, a best friend who constantly compares, competes, and envies, sweet promises that never come with action, sudden changes in behavior we deliberately ignore, and above all, it was a story about rising after hitting rock bottom. As the plane left the runway, New Orleans shrank beneath a layer of white clouds. I looked out the window and smiled. I had not just survived, I had won, and now I was free. If you've stayed with me all the way to the end, thank you for spending your time here until the last moment of this story. If you want to keep walking alongside more journeys of awakening, more stories of betrayal, revenge, and healing like this, then please hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and leave a comment telling me what you took away from Layla's story. We will meet again in many more stories to come.